Come on in, please. Stephen Schork. He's the author of the Schork Report. Stephen, I don't think these deals with Saudi make any difference to the price of oil. It's all about diplomacy and money flowing backwards and forwards. Have I got it right?
Absolutely. In the here and the now, that this deal has no impact, of course, on the price of oil. This is all about machinations going ahead on Thursday's meeting with OPEC. But in the greater scheme of things, this deal that was just inked best underscores why Donald Trump is president of the United States. And that's simply the fact that this country, during the recovery, let's keep in mind, the Great Recession lasted 19 months. The recovery is now in its 95th month. So we are 5 times now longer throughout the recovery, and yet we still lack quality jobs. That is to say, when we look at the top earners on a weekly basis, the top 2/3 are still in deficit. That is to say, of all the jobs in those 19 months that were lost during the Great Recession, we've only replaced 60% of those jobs. So now the one industry that pays well and was at the vanguard prior to the crash in oil prices in 2014, of course, was the oil and gas industry. But as the saying goes, capital is going to go where it is welcomed, and it's going to stay where it is well treated. And when we saw all the political gamesmanship played with Excel during the previous administration, it was obvious that this was not welcomed capital in this industry. So now with this deal, Trump and Exxon, $20 billion in the Gulf Coast, Shell, after sitting on the sidelines for 5 to 6 years, finally pulls the trigger on building a major petrochemical plant in the western part of my home state here in Pennsylvania. It is clear that capital is finally, again, welcomed in this industry, and the United States is once again open for business.
And that means jobs, because we're talking tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars flowing into the United States. And to you, that's flat-out jobs, high-paid jobs. You're making that point too, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Now, when we look at the U.S. State Department's own study of, let's take the Keystone XL, which, by the way, Hillary Clinton's State Department and John Kerry's State Department both signed off on, and that own study said during the construction phase, 42,000 jobs would be created. Now, again, what that means for the petrochemical industry at the top of the pipe and at the end of the pipe, and the industry that spurs and the multiplier effect that we see created, it translates generally into jobs. Shell is putting 6,000 workers to work right now on the construction of an ethylene cracker just outside of Pittsburgh. Is going to lead to significant, and again, I want to underscore this, high-paying, quality jobs. So we are seeing, finally, all those shovel-ready jobs we were told about 8 years ago, but for whatever reason we never saw, they were always there, and we're finally spurring to start to see those real quality jobs come to the fore.
Stephen Schork, thanks very much indeed. The President and Benjamin Netanyahu speaking. Let's listen in.
Of course, not all I like to discuss before the cameras, but I do look forward to our discussions, which I think are pregnant with possibilities.
You know, with Iran should be very grateful to the United States because Iran negotiated a fantastic deal with the previous administration, a deal that is unbelievable from any standpoint. Some people don't understand even how it could be even thought of. And instead of being thankful and saying thank you, because they were in serious trouble, I think they would have failed, totally failed, within 6 months. We gave them a lifeline, and we not only gave them a lifeline, we gave them wealth and prosperity. And we also gave them an ability to continue with terror and with all of the things they've been doing. Because no matter where we go, we see the signs of Iran in the Middle East. No matter where we go, whether it's Syria, where we're really forced to shoot the 59 missiles a few weeks ago. No matter what area we're in, we see Yemen, Iraq. No matter where we are, we see the signs, every sign, whether it's soldiers, whether it's money and guns, it's Iran. And instead of saying thank you to the United States, they now feel emboldened. Maybe they figure the deal was so good, we can do it every time. They can't do it, believe me. But it was a terrible thing for the United States to enter that deal. And believe me, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, that I can tell you.
Your intelligence cooperation is terrific.
Thank you, President. Thank you, guys.
As we said, the optics of a meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu are extremely different from the optics of the meetings we got used to over the last 8 years between President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Two things of substance were just revealed. Number one, our president said Iran should be grateful to America because they got that nuke deal. The president at that point appeared to be setting his sights firmly on the nuke deal, not necessarily to throw it over, but certainly to be highly critical of it whilst he's speaking to the Prime Minister of Israel. Second point, right at the very end of his remarks, he said Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. They will never have one. That is completely different. That is the opposite of the Iran nuke deal. I think those were two very important statements from the Prime Minister and our President right there moments ago. Now, who's with us now? I'll tell you. Dana Loesch, host of The Dana Show. Your thoughts on those two items just revealed there from our President. What do you say, Dana?
Well, I'm pleased so far, Stuart, and as always, so good to see you this morning. I'm very pleased thus far, and I'm really excited to hear the messaging on Iran, particularly because for the previous 8 years, it felt as though we did everything to satiate Iran's appetite for domination. It felt that we compromised so much for Iran and got so little, actually nothing, out of it. And so I'm really pleased to see that this is taking place with this administration, that these are the words that they have, and that the language that the president has had, Stuart, has been so strong against Iran. It's a complete 180 from what we've seen with the previous administration. And that language, Stuart, is exactly what we needed to hear from a president, from the United States president. That language on Iran, that forceful, that's a real line in the sand, if you want to talk about a line in the sand. And finally, I think we see it. And so that's been good. I'm very encouraged by this.
Something that I was encouraged by, which came out yesterday in the meetings in Saudi Arabia, where our president talked about the slaughter of Christians. It's got to stop. I mean, he came right out with it. We haven't heard that in the last decade. We've just not heard it. Now, I thought that was a very welcome change, and you, I'm sure.
Yes, I was very happy to hear that because it is an everyday reality for so many people in that part of the world. Christian genocide, the absolute extermination of Christians in so many areas. He also said Islamic extremism. He said Islamic extremism to Saudi Arabia's face. And he also hit up on a bunch of other points as well that I think are going to go a long way in reestablishing the United States as the bringer of peace. The United States as strength through peace. Look, we'll be friends with you, but don't start nothing, there won't be nothing. And I think that's the message that we're getting out of this administration, and it is one that the United States has needed to have for a long time. There's been a power vacuum. There's been an absence of spine, and it feels like it's back.
Okay, I just want to explain to everybody, left-hand side of everyone's screens, that is Jerusalem. Moments ago, the president was engaged in a conversation with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In it, he said Iran should be very grateful to America because they got such an easy nuke deal with Iran. Second point he said was, look, the Iranians are never, and he used the word, never going to have a nuclear weapon. That, I thought, was a very big deal. Do we have Attorney General Ashcroft back with us? Do we do it? We do not. Okay. Sorry. Now,
Ever hopeful.
It appeared on my prompter operator, just very briefly there. Dana, I want to get back to you with a story from the lady in Southern California. Put it on prompter, please. Okay. Okay. Let me see the Dow Jones Industrial Average, please. Can I see that? Up 71 points as we speak. 20,875. Okay, that's where we are. Okay, I know what's happened, okay?
Yes?
My teleprompter has come down, okay? That's what happened. Dana, put Dana on the camera, please, because she's going to laugh at me. Thank you very much indeed. My prompter went down, so I wasn't quite sure where I was going, you see. That's a problem for a guy like me.
And the show goes on, those prompter problems.
Yeah, you know, what can I say? Now, in Southern California, a leading Democrat was asked, what does the Democrat Party stand for? And I believe we have her response. It's somewhat garbled and all over the place, but listen and watch this now. Maxine Waters. Okay. We're having a few technical difficulties. There we go.
Well, everyone knows that I am the